Okay, so we have just watched prepositions. What are prepositions? What do they show? What do they tell you?
It's where something
It tells you positions. It tells you the position of something. So your water bottle might be on the table, your feet are under the table, you might be behind, you're sitting behind your desk, you might be in front of yours. I'm at the front of the classroom, okay? They're very much Key Stage 1 prepositions, aren't they? When we have the teddy bear in Key Stage 1, we put it on, under, over, behind, in front of. So when you're thinking Key Stage 2 prepositions, you might still use those ones, but you're going to think of the more complex ones. So from that video, we wrote down things like within, among, during, across. What else do we have? After, near. So they're also showing position, okay? And sometimes when we're using them with things that aren't necessarily concrete, so concrete objects like a bottle or a chair or a bear, it's sometimes hard to remember that they are actually prepositions as well. And we also have just talked about adverbials, because adverbials are prepositions, because adverbials show position. Like what kind of position? Because they explain when, where, how, etc. Okay, so they are still prepositions. So we're going to have a look at these. Now this is quite good because it tells you there's 4 prepositions in the sentence below. So we stop at 4. Circle the 4 prepositions in the sentence below. On a mountain bike, you can cycle across rocky ground, along muddy paths and over harsh terrain. Tell me one. Across. Super. And we've gone cool purple today. On.
Over.
So we've got 1, 2, 3. So how many more do we need? Because how many are we doing? Along. 1 more, 4. Can't find along there. Well done. Right, next slide. Which 2 sentences contain a preposition? He walked really quickly. The horse munched his hay happily. She ran around the games field. The old man walked past the door. You need to tell what the preposition in the sentence is as well. So who didn't have a turn last time?
The old man walked past the door and the preposition is past.
Good boy. So we would tick that one. It says tick. Tick 2, and we know the preposition is past. In the actual question, you wouldn't need to circle what it is, but it's worth doing just to remind you.
She ran around the games field, and it is around.
Around. Good girl. Do we all agree?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? Well done. Circle all the prepositions in the sentence below. He walked through the doorway and sat behind the desk. Right, who hasn't had a turn? I feel like I'm always picking the same people.
3.
Is that the only one? It does say all. Makes me think there's more than one. Any more? No, I don't think there's any more. Do you think there's any more? No? Through and behind. Tick all the sentences that contain a preposition. So the first, let's read them first. Ali locked the door before he left. The shops are beyond the main road. My brother is behind me in the race. Barry is below Andrew in the register.
Barry is below Andrew in the register.
What's the preposition?
Below. My brother is behind me in the race. The preposition is behind. The shops are beyond the main road and the preposition is beyond.
That was a good one. Beyond.
And he locked the door before he left.
What's the preposition?
Preposition is before.
It shows time, doesn't it? That sometimes is the tricky one. But thinking about how adverbials show time and place, etc., before he left, it's showing that position in time before he left. Well done. Which sentence? Now, sentence hasn't got an S on the end, so I assume it's, well, actually, no, don't even need to assume, it says tick 1. Contains a preposition to indicate time. So, we just talked about that before. So, it's a preposition to indicate time. So, I watched the show on television last night. I have to stay in bed today because I am ill. We used to live behind the supermarket. It rained heavily during the night. Oh. Could we eliminate any? Is there any you say definitely no, which don't show anything to do with time? What do you think, Summer? What do you say no to first?
The top one.
You think I watched the television show, the show on television last night. What about last night? Does that show a position? You think no? What does everyone else think?
It's got last in.
You think possibly the last mean that last could be the preposition? Okay. What do you think?
I have to stay in bed today because I'm ill. Yeah. What's the best? Oh yeah.
What's the time preposition?
Today.
Okay.
We used to live behind the supermarket.
What's the time? What's the time preposition? No, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying, just asking. What are you saying is the time preposition?
We can definitely eliminate. We used to live behind the supermarket because it doesn't exactly say when or last night or something like that.
Now it does say behind, but behind shows position where they used to live. It doesn't show a time preposition. But used. Does that show a time preposition?
Yes. It does, but I don't think it would be used.
Okay. It rained heavily during the night. What do you think?
Yeah, because it has got during in it as well. During the time.
Now, I'm not going to give an answer, and I'm not going to give an answer on film on purpose, because sometimes what children do at home is I know, and I would do this as well probably, is you kind of do it along, and so you think, this one, I am leaving, so your teacher is going to mark it with what you think is the answer. So is last night the time preposition? Is today the time preposition? Is used to the time preposition? Or is during the time preposition? Okay. Now, we're going to talk about what we're going to do in the lesson. So, expectations of non-chronological reports. What are my expectations of what you're going to be writing? So you guys, what are you going to be doing today? What have you already done? You've done your plan, yeah? What, looking at your success criteria, or thinking to your success criteria, what things do we need to have in this non-chronological report? What are the most important things we need to perhaps be looking back and making sure we're doing?
Headings.
Headings. Main heading. We need a heading, don't we? We need a main heading on there. This is going to be it. Heading at the top. Now, think at the moment we're not worrying about all the faffy stuff around the edges, okay? Because at the moment we're still writing the main text, aren't we? We're not worrying about text boxes, fact boxes, or pictures or captions. What kind of features, both mainly grammatical, do we need to make sure we include? Heading is important, so we need to know what's going at the top. Tell me something.
Past tense.
Past tense, especially as we are writing about an event in World War II. World War II happened in the past, happened a long time ago. Okay, so it must be written in the past tense. It's not happening now, it's not going to happen in the future. Third person. Okay, you weren't there, you aren't there. You're almost detached from it, you are giving someone the information.
Spelling.
Spelling's definitely an expectation. Don't mind if you can't spell it, but find out how to spell it correctly.
Introduction.
Yes, so with their more are, so we need a really clear intro, don't we? Then we need our separate paragraphs, and what some of the feedback I've given is making sure you are really clear what each separate paragraph is about. Is this first paragraph about safety? So in there you're going to include anything about blackouts, air raid shelters. Then what's your next paragraph going to be about? Your next paragraph could be about...
Blackouts.
Would that probably come in safety, wouldn't it?
No.
So that's what you need to think. What comes in this one? What's my next one going to be about?
The bombing.
So actually about the bombings. So in that paragraph you could talk about how long they went on for, where, when, all those kind of things in that paragraph, couldn't you? And then your paragraph 3 might be about the destruction or the aftermath of the Blitz, couldn't it? So it could be sort of what happened after, okay? And then you've got your conclusion, which is your summary. So you need to be really careful. You don't need to use subheadings, okay? You can use subheadings, but you don't need to, because you're at an age where actually what you write in each paragraph is going to tell you what each paragraph is about. You can do subheadings, but sometimes they're not really, that's quite hard to write as subheadings, isn't it? You just need, you in your head need to know, right, anything I'm going to write about Blackout or Anderson shelters or air raid wardens is going to go in my safety paragraph. Actually, I need to do a bit more research about what happened afterwards because that paragraph's not very full, okay? And actually, I've got that about bombers. If it's nothing to do with any of those 3 things, you don't put it in. You might put it in a fact box or a did you know box. If it's just a little bit of information about something really interesting you found out, it needs to go somewhere else. You might not write your conclusion now, okay? Because your conclusion is summarising what you've already written. And if you haven't already written it, it's quite hard to summarise it. You might have some ideas of the things you're going to include in there. So we've talked about things like why it stopped, why did Hitler stop, what was the reason for it. So you might think, actually, there's a couple of bits I want to put in here, or that I know I'm going to put in there to draw it to a close. But because I'm summarising what I've already talked about, that might naturally flow better once I've written all my other paragraphs. Does that make sense? Anything else grammatically we need to include? Bullet points. What other grammar have we been learning? Passive. Think about your prepositions. And you can't spell.
Generalised.
Generalisers. Well done. Generalisers.
Active and passive.
Yeah, we've got passive. Oh, I didn't put active there, did I? Active and passive. That's quite a tricky one to get in there, but we'll try.
Fanboys.
Yeah, so fanboys and white bus, which are our conjunctions. So coordinating and subordinating. If you're going to use a white bus and you're using subordinating, it'd be a really good idea to try and move that subordinate clause to the beginning of your sentence before the main clause with your comma.
Colons.
Yeah, oh, yes, they always forget these. Colons and semicolons, because that's the new punctuation we've learnt.
Punctuation and capital letters.
So basic punctuation, I always write the notes down, capital letters and full stops. Basic punctuation, that's not there. Capital letters for proper nouns. You've got Blitz, you've got Germany, you've got Hitler. They must have capital letters.
Parentheses.
Parentheses, brackets, dashes, commas. Anything else? Please don't make me sing Beyonce.
If I were a boy.
Yeah, so subjunctive, if I were. You might not be able to get it in there. You might be able to. You might be able to get your conclusion.
Modal verbs.
Modal verbs, good, yes. And what was the other one? Imperative verbs.
Yeah.
And they are different. Modal and imperative different. Modal shows possibility. Imperative is bossy.
Would you do out of 3?
You could do power of 3. If you were going to do power of 3, I would only do it in your introduction or possibly your conclusion. Power of 3 was much more a persuasive thing, wasn't it? Power of 3 is a persuasion technique you would use to make something. This is not, you're not persuading anybody, you are telling. What's actually the most important thing? What is that? It is facts, information. Oh, that'll help me. I'm just not tall enough. Facts, information. It is not in date order, non-chronological. I don't want you to tell me what happened in September, October, November, December. That's why you're splitting up into paragraphs based on what those are about. I don't want you to give me a list of what happened.
It doesn't have to be in time.
Yeah, so non-chronological means not in time order. You can just pick the bits. I mean, you could write something in here that happened in September and something in here that happened in May the following year. Okay? It does not matter. So it's fact, it's a non-fiction. What does non-fiction mean?
It's true.
It's true, like our fictitious unicorn, which isn't true. Right, any more questions? Anything else you can think of that we haven't included? Bullet points is possibly going to be one of your middle paragraphs, not going to be your intro or conclusion, but it might more likely be a fact box, mightn't it, bullet points?
Power 3?
No, we talked about power 3, we said it's probably, that's more for persuasion. You might include it in your intro, but it's more of a power. The power of 3 is when you say things again and again and again, trying to get someone to do what you want. This isn't about this is about giving people information. You've got to imagine that what you're writing is one page in a fact book about World War II. So you don't need, all the other pages will have about whatever else, evacuation and things like that. Your page is only about either Battle of Britain or the Blitz, okay? Nothing else needs to go in there. But you need to include as much information as you have about it, because the person reading your report wants to know all about your chosen topic. Does that make sense? I do not want to read how Hitler got mega cross, okay? And I don't really want funky facts either about World War II. It's a bit more serious than that, isn't it? So no mega cross Hitlers and no funky facts. We can think of a bit more formal with those, can't we? All right. On paper, if you can, so we can edit it next week. There we go. That's all we've got. Good luck.